So when I was about 8 years old, I had a near-death experience. It was a result of having an asthma attack. Now, I've had a few asthma attacks in the past. I've had asthma my whole life, and some mild to moderate, but this was, of course, it was the big one, I suppose you could say. Um, and the way it all went down was that I was sleeping over a family member's house. My parents, they must have been out having a night out away from the kids, whatever they were doing, and sleeping over one of my aunt's house. And it was late at night. My aunt and uncle, they went to bed. I was sleeping in the guest room, and I'm just watching cartoons on the couch, and they had a cat. Okay, so this is how this whole entire saga happens. She had a long haired gray cat. And, I'm petting the cat, hanging out with the cat, watching cartoons. It's late, it's like midnight or so. Start using my inhaler. And, 5 minutes would go by, I would use it again, and the intervals would become shorter and shorter. So, you know, eventually I'm using my inhaler once every 2 minutes, once every 1 minute, 30 seconds. It's really like not even working anymore. And this takes place over the course of like a handful of hours. Because I believe by the time we left that house it had to have been like 4 in the morning. Um, Little did I know that the cat, so I'm deathly allergic to cats, and I had no idea about this. No one even knew about this until this happened. And apparently, what they do is they go for my respiratory system. I don't know why it is, but it's pretty wild to look back and think, wow, like I was using that cat as like a pillow. Like usually cats, they're vicious, they'll swipe at your ankles and stuff. And this cat was super mellow. We were hanging out. I'm like resting on it. And I had absolutely no idea that it was literally killing me. So over the course of, let me just take my breath here. Sometimes when I do these interviews, I don't breathe and I got to catch my
Yeah,
breath.
that's fine.
So over the course of maybe 3 or 4 hours, I end up running out of medicine. So I I knew that I was having trouble with my asthma and I knew it was getting worse, but it was already like the middle of the night and I sincerely did not want to wake up my aunt. Like I just felt bad. I'm like they're sleeping, it's the middle of the night. So I didn't want to wake them up. And I must have used my inhaler like 100 times. I completely ran out of medicine, and that's actually the only reason that I finally woke them up. So eventually, eventually, I finally realized that I need to go wake them up, right? So I tiptoe into their room, and I always thought that was kind of funny, It's like I know that I'm gonna wake them up now, and I'm still like super stealthy. Um, and eventually tell her what's going on, and she jumped into action right away, basically saved my life. As well as the doctors, of course, whatever the hell they did. Pardon my language. But between her and the doctors, they like collectively saved my life. And so I tell her what's going on, and it would turn out that by the time that I woke her up, I was already dying. I literally could not have waited another minute. And so, it's kind of funny. I've told this story like a handful of times now, and it is kind of weird, man. Like, I've gotten past it, this was years ago and everything, but it's a trip even thinking about it, man. Like I spent a lot of time like fully realizing that like I'm not even supposed to be alive right now. And for me that was always crazy. And I'm sure we'll have time to get into that type of stuff later. But so she gets out of bed, and my grandfather has an inhaler. Now he lived at the time like 5 minutes up the road. So in her mind, she's like, okay, you're out of medicine. We'll go use his inhaler. I kind of knew at this point that it wasn't going to work because I used mine like 100 times. So I was not very confident at this point. It was very scary. Um, it's not fun. I've said this a bunch, but it's like being trapped inside your own body. Like there's nowhere to go, and it was, quite frankly, it was awful. But like I said, it's in the past. I try not to harp on it. So we're in the car. My last memory of being alive was in the back of her car. I had my head was sitting on the window. Couldn't even hold my head up really. And apparently we did make it to my grandparents' house. Now, I don't remember getting there. Like my brain was already shutting down in the car. And that's so weird. I've told this story a bunch, and for some reason I'm like shaking right now. But maybe it's because it's cold outside. It is kind of cold today. Um, anyway, so we make it to my grandparents' house. I have no memory of this, but apparently they met us outside, and I went to use his inhaler, and then I basically just fell on my back. Which, thank God, the way it was like a horizontal sidewalk with grass behind it. So I mean, thank God it was grass behind. I could have cracked my head open. But yeah, and at that point they called an ambulance. I don't remember any of this part. And outside of what I saw in my near death experience, it was pretty much I go from the car to the near death experience, and I just like woke up in the hospital. As far as what I saw on the other side, to be fair, it was pretty brief. It was kind of like I feel like I just got like a glimpse of the other side, which was enough for me to like go on this lifelong journey of like what is consciousness and existence and reality as a whole. And thankfully, I'm passionate about it and I find it very fascinating. Um, to be honest, like I'm sure over the course of time, like those type of questions could like probably drive people crazy, right? Like I don't know, but for me, I find it fascinating. Life is beautiful. So yeah, so it goes from being in the car, like suffocating to death in the car, and all of a sudden I was just surrounded by darkness. And I don't recall really questioning like where I was or anything else. It was kind of like autonomous at this point. It was kind of like I was in space. And I always want to like emphasize that when you talk about darkness, like people attribute it to like a negative thing. It's like it was a neutral darkness. And it was kind of like I was in space. And there was a light way off into the distance. Like it would look like if you see a star from the planet Earth, it was like very far away. And it was getting closer and closer. So at first I thought it was coming towards me, but in hindsight, I was probably going towards it. It was just like the perception of things. And eventually it just gets to the point where it's so large that I could only see the darkness and like my peripherals. I know some people say they had like 360-degree vision. This was like 20 years ago, so there's certain details that I'm not positive about, so I don't want to like embellish the story. So yeah, next thing you know, this light is just right in front of me, and it seems like the most natural thing that would have happened is for some reason it seems like I would have gone inside of the light. So when this light was when I got that close to this light, it started to be accompanied by a sound. And the best way I could describe it, it sounded like music. I only heard two notes. This was a very brief experience on the other side, which is ironic because my heart was shut down for a very long time. My brain was shut down for a while. Like they told my mother to say goodbye to me. And like I hate even having to put that in this, but it's pertinent to the story. Like they literally said, say goodbye to your son because we're calling time of death in 30 seconds. That's exactly what they told her. So my heart was shut down, brain was shut down. I'm having this weird experience in the light. Um, and I heard these two notes, and it sounded like if you take like a group of like 100 people and they all sing the same note, but they all have different voices. It was like a choir or something, you know, and it was beautiful. And to be honest, like, saw the light, heard the sound. Once I heard those notes, I just woke up in the hospital. Like that's my perception of it. Um, could more things have happened in between? Possibly, but that's the only part of my story that I could definitively say that happened. Um, but yeah, I suppose in a nutshell, that's kind of the story. I'm not sure if I told it in the best way, but you know.
Let me ask you this. So that light, you saw that light, that you're going to that light. What do you think that light was?
Um, Good question. I suppose the word God is loaded, you know. I mean, there's several interpretations of what God could be, you know. There's like 1,000 different religions on the planet, but I suppose like I guess you could call it God or consciousness. Maybe it was like the if we do come from like a collective consciousness and we're all fragmented parts of that, I suppose naturally, perhaps that's what that was, like a giant sea of consciousness. Whatever it was, it just seems like my life force was like magnetically attracted to it. Like it almost seems like inevitable, like that's just what happens or something. So I'm not sure. Yeah. So I don't know if I would call it God, but like I said, the word God is loaded and I'm not giving like a definition to it, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Okay, now you are young person. How do your friends and family, schoolmates perceive you? Did you tell everybody about this experience? Did you share it with them? Do they think you're crazy? Do they believe you?
Yeah, I don't think anyone really has a reason to not believe me. It's not like I go around talking about it all the time.
Well, now you have a podcast, so you're talking about it all the time.
Oh, of course. Well, nowadays, yeah. But okay, so as far as like friends and family and stuff, they all know what happened. I suppose that's an interesting question. You know, I've really never thought about that one, to be honest. I don't know. I couldn't tell you if anyone thinks I'm crazy or not. And quite frankly, I don't know if it's beneficial for me to really be concerned about that, you know? I feel like that could only hold me down, you know? So it's like, I don't know, man. I can't put words in their mouth.
Coming back to the beginning of your near death experience, Dave, you said that you suddenly found yourself in this natural darkness. How did you feel in that darkness? It was a pleasant experience or it was a fearful? Did you see anything? Did you feel anything before you saw that beam of light?
Um, as far as physical feeling, I don't recall physically feeling anything. And I don't recall really thinking much about it either. Like it almost was kind of one of those where it's like you're there and you don't even question it. Like it's hard to explain. I don't think I questioned why I was there. It was brief, to be fair. Um, yeah, I don't recall feeling anything. I suppose you could say it was comfortable in the sense that I did not feel any pain or,
You said it was brief, but everybody says that there is no time on the other side. How did you feel that it was brief?
well, that's a really good question. So, my perception was that it was brief. Like I don't know. I don't recall. Like I have a theory about this. I think that maybe perhaps if I went into the light, I would have had one of these grandiose experiences where I travel the unit. You know, everyone has their stories. Some people travel the universe for 100 days and 100 nights, and they wake up 5 minutes late. Like that just wasn't my experience. In my experience, it seemed like it lasted like not even a minute long. You know, that's just my perception, and you know, obviously you have to factor in like this was years ago, how accurate is my memory, like there's so many factors, but the only thing I can confidently remember was a very brief experience.
Yeah. Now, that figure of light, you said that you went to that light. Did you see a figure or it was just like a beaming of light?
Yeah, it was not a figure. It was not a figure like a person. It seems like a circle, like a perfect circle. Granted, it was not like contoured, like it wasn't like with sharp edges or something.
Yeah,
It was like the opposite, whatever they would call like faded edges, you know.
yeah.
Um, I would call it more of a circle, you know.
Did that light speak to you, or you felt something, some information coming from it?
It did not speak to me, no, but now that you kind of have me thinking about it, perhaps that's where the music was coming from. I
Yeah.
don't see where else it would come from, so I never really thought about that, to be honest. So perhaps as I was closer to the light, that's why I was able to hear the two notes.
Yeah. What kind of music was that? I mean, if you can give us an example of a genre, spiritual music, chill, chill out music. What kind of music was that?
You know, it's like I wish I could take the concept of it and just like transmit the data straight to your head because I'm not a fantastic singer. I say this on every podcast. I wish I could recreate it for you, but I'm not a great singer. Um, I suppose the most accurate you could say it's like an orchestra or a choir. You know, like I said, it sounded like if you took 100 people with different voices and they're all trying to sing the
Okay.
same note.
Okay. So religious people in church, they say that there is a choir of angels singing. In religious terms, it says a choir of angels singing. This is something that you would perceive too, or no?
Yeah, like so I'm not great with music terminology, but just so is a choir, this is kind of a question. Is a choir when you have a bunch of people singing? Is that
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, they all sing in unison.
okay? That's exactly what it sounded like. It sounded like if a group of people were singing like in synchronization or synchronicity with each other, you know, like and like I said, it was two notes. One, the first one was higher than the other, but they were not drastically different. Um, you know, kind of like some people say church music. I suppose it depends what song you're talking about. I've heard similar notes, but you know, there's no particular song I could point to. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Have you ever been to church?
yeah, I went to, so I had a first communion when I was a kid, and we were never like particularly religious or anything, but I suppose my parents, you know, they wanted to at least give me the option. However, at the time, I I didn't know what any of it meant. I still, to this day, I have no idea what a first communion is. All I know is that I did it one time, right? So it's like, yeah, I've been to church, but like not, you know, not really in adult years, you know.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking is this. When you went to church, did you hear the choir singing? Did you like that singing? Did it resonate with you?
Um, to be honest, I don't recall like I just don't have strong enough a memory of that particular thing. Like I literally just have a brief memory of being in the communion with a bunch of kids who I couldn't even tell you what they looked like. I don't
All right.
remember what music they were playing or anything.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I wish I could answer the question, but I don't remember
That's
what.
no problem. So, but that music was, that music was, you like that music? It was pleasurable to listen? It was beautiful music in your concept or not?
Yeah, yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, it's you know, it's hard to explain. You're saying church music or what I heard on the other side?
The one you heard on the other side.
Okay. Yeah, it was beautiful. Those two notes,
Okay.
and I always say this, it was beautiful. It sounded
Yeah.
like an orchestra, you know. Kind of funny because I listen to like heavy metal and stuff, you know. Like I do still like, you know, certain different types of music, you know. I like
Yeah.
violins and stuff like that as well. So,
So, Dave, after this experience you had, are you afraid of death?
you know, I really love that question. It literally depends on the day, and I'll tell you why. Because on one hand, like we talked about earlier, I do believe life goes on because I think it's more likely. However, I just feel like you know, my analytical brain will try to search for answers so much that like eventually it depends on the way that I'm looking at it. Sometimes I'm like perfectly fine. You know what? It's going to be fine. Everything's fine. Other times I'm like seriously concerned, but like,
Yeah,
it's, what are you going to do? Right. So it depends on how you're looking at it. It's, to be honest, I'm less afraid of what happens after you die and more afraid of like how it happens. I really do think that, the whole suffocating, like when I was a child,
yeah,
and I hate to be, I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm just trying to be honest with you. Like, it was seriously so, and I don't even want to use the word traumatic. It was awful. It was the worst thing that ever, it felt terrible, and
yeah,
very scary. And I think it's more so the method of how, not method. I'm all over the place. Here, let me say it in a simple way, okay? I'm I'm less afraid of what happens after I die and more afraid of how it happens. And
yeah,
I suppose for years and years, I just thought to myself, I don't care how it is that I die, but just if it's anything outside of like that same thing, the suffocation. And then it's like, I still have asthma, so like, I hate to say it, but it's pretty likely it'll probably be the same way. So the anticipation of that, I just try not to think about it, man.
yeah,
But as
yeah,
far as
yeah,
when it's actually over, I'm pretty sure I'll be fine, right? Like, I was fine for billions of years until I showed up in this body, right? So I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, like they say that nobody gets out of this life alive. So,
It's not a high survival rate.
right, right. But how it happens, that's the main thing people, because I ask almost everybody, and they say that they're not afraid, but they are just concerned about how they don't suffer pain. And also, if are still young people, they don't want to leave children or wives, because they want to be around them a little longer. So that's another concern they have. But most people, they say they're not afraid.
Yeah, it's like I said, it truly depends. I know that sometimes I can be articulate and sometimes I'm all over the place, but like, it really does depend. It depends how I'm looking at it, and perhaps it depends how much I'm thinking about it.
Yeah,
Um, it's sometimes you just need to like take a break from it sometimes, which is, uh, you know, now that I'm interviewing near death experiencers and all this type of stuff, it's like I don't exactly have the option to like take a break for a while, right? Because I'll have a guest coming on the show tomorrow, and I got to do
yeah,
and like relive the conversation when I'm editing, and it's like now, it's a little bit tricky. So now I got to work really hard if I want to take a day off, like, because I don't, can't just not show up. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I kind of put myself in a pickle where it's like now I think about it even more than ever.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of rambling.
That's okay. How many shows you have, if I may ask you?
How many what?
How many podcasts you already have published?
Published? At least 20.
20, okay.
As far as like guests on my show, and of course, there's a handful that are not out yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
How?
still working.
And
Yeah.
I got to catch up to you, bro.
Yeah. Thank you. I have 60, 62 or something like that. Now, what's the main thing that you understood or realized, from all these interviews that you've been interviewing that experiencers? What you got for yourself?
I'm gonna have to really think about that one. The first thing that comes to mind for some odd reason is the first thing I really start to notice is like there's obviously similarities, but and then there's going to be personalized experiences in people's near death experience, right? But my analytical mind says, okay, a lot of these contradict each other, and then so this, I don't know. It actually like confuses me a little bit more. But I try to just take everything with a grain of salt and say, you know what? I'll put what they said here into consideration. You said the question was, what is the main thing that I realized in
That you
doing
realized for yourself?
for myself? It's really tricky, man, because I watched so many near death experiences before starting that I suppose one thing I realized is that like I'm pretty lazy. you know, like like I don't know, it's I love having the conversations, and it's like it's hard to explain, you know. I feel like half of the people I interviewed, I already heard their stories multiple times
Yeah.
years before I even talk. So it's a hard question to answer, to be honest.
Yeah,
Nothing
yeah, yeah.
particular comes to mind.
Because you already got that realization before interviewing these people, right? Yeah.
Well, not, you know, I don't have all the answers. To be honest, I'm at a loss for an answer on that question.
All right. Now, the name of my show is About Freedom Show. And what's your definition of freedom?
What is the definition? You ask awesome questions. The definition of freedom, freedom to be authentic and do, you know, what. So it's tricky because we live, you know, there's the idea of freedom like in America, but that's like not, if you're talking true freedom, like the real reality of true freedom is without limitation. So I'm not even going to go in terms of like politics and stuff. Let's say like, okay, true freedom would be not being limited by having three cones and rods in your eyes, you know, potentially having more, you know, having like all these senses we don't have. It actually, you're making me just think about this, like the entire our entire existence appears to be built upon limitations. So I suppose true freedom would be to be without all those limitations. I have a pet bird. She has more cones and rods in her eyes than I do. I've never even seen what this room even really looks like. She sees more of this room than I ever have in my entire life. And that's only visual. So I suppose true freedom would be to be free of all those limitations, I suppose.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, I had Raymond Moody as a guest last time, and also his partner that writes books with him, Paul Perry. And this is the definition Paul Perry gave it to me, which I like it very much. It was very short. He said the definition of freedom is to do whatever you want in life without harming anyone. I love that.
Yeah, that is a good that's a really good explanation actually. You know, I think people limit themselves as well. I think, you know, potentially the idea of like, well, I would like to do XYZ, but how is society gonna, or how is my, uh you know, like you mentioned earlier, like what do your friends or people think about you sharing your story? There's got to be so many people that put limitations on what they're willing to do because they're afraid of backlash, or they don't want to, you know, they're trying to appease everyone. And I think you have to, you know, I had a realization that I think pertains to what you're saying is like, there's no such thing as a perfect person. I'm not convinced that it's possible. Okay. So, with that in mind, let's pretend that it was possible. If you were a perfect person, you know what they would do? They would hate you for being perfect. Oh, look at him. He's so perfect. Oh, this guy thinks he's so perfect. You literally cannot please everyone fundamentally. And I feel like when I had that realization, you say, okay, well,
Yeah.
why would I put a limitation on what I'm willing to do for the sake of opinions of other people? If their opinion matters to me, it's because they themselves, like maybe it's someone who has your best interest in mind. But the people that you just can't make them happy no matter what, it's I can't factor them in. It's now I'm limiting my own experience to do that, you know.
Yeah. I have that realization too that you cannot make everybody happy, and it's all right. As long as you feel that you're doing the right thing and you're not harming anyone, and this is your life, this is your way, this is your path.
No, you bring up a great point because you know what too, and then that kind of helps you to gain a little bit more of an understanding with people. Like, okay, um, you don't need to harbor resentment for people that don't agree with you or this type of stuff. They live in different bodies with different neural connections and different life experiences and information taken in and lack thereof. Of course, they think something different. Like, perhaps that's a part of the reason we're here too. Like, we're not all here to have the same exact experience, you know? So it kind of just puts it into perspective where you're like, okay, at the very least, I can understand maybe why they don't understand. You know what I mean? We're different people.
Anyway, anything else, Dave, would you like to say to humanity before we finish this podcast? Do you have something really profound or not profound, whatever you'd like to say?
I never do good on these questions because I never know where to go, but I will say this. I suppose the first thing that comes to mind is skate for life. Second thing that comes to mind is be a good person, love people, enjoy your life, like just love yourself, love people, enjoy your life, do what you love. If you have something that you love, do it as often as possible. There's some people walking around out here that barely have hobbies, let alone a passion. Sorry, I heard a loud bang. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh
I'll
man,
cut
I
it.
was on a roll too. Son of a. Okay,
You can
man, I was
start
on a
again if you.
roll and that loud ass bang happened. Okay, if you have if you have something that you're passionate about, do it as much as possible. There's people walking around here that don't even have a hobby, let alone a passion that burns, hotter than the sun or however you want to call it. Like, if you have something that you love to that degree, uh, understand like you're very lucky to have found a passion like that. Some people are lost. Some people are lost. We're all kind of lost in this life. No one knows why we're here. No one knows where we go when we die. Everyone has these questions in the back of their mind, and no one knows what the right answers are. If you have a passion, I don't care if it's skateboarding or surfing, or if you like to paint, or you like to, have conversations like this, whatever it is, do it as often as possible. Feed your soul. I told that to my friend last night. You got to feed your soul, man, sometimes. And
Yeah.
I suppose that's all that came to mind, man. But other
No,
than that, skateboard for life, man.
that was good. Yeah. Like Sylvester Stallone, he has a TikTok or Instagram, and he's always keep punching, keep punching, keep punching. This is what he said. And yours is skateboard for life. Well, let me see here. I saw a quote on Instagram. It's not mine. On Facebook. I'm going to find it very quick. What is it? I posted it today. Okay. So this is what I'm just going to put this into
Just out
space.
of curiosity, too, when we're done record, I don't know how Riverside works. Like, and what I'm just like out of curiosity, so that I'm prepared. Like, are you when you stop recording, do you hang up at the same time, or
Oh,
like I
no.
just want to be prepared, like to
Yeah, yeah,
be
yeah.
okay, okay.
I'm going to stop and we're going to stay online chat for another minute or two. And at the
Okay.
top, you see it says 99% uploading is going to say upload complete. And then we can log out.
Okay, yeah. I always ask the guests too because I don't know. I don't want to
Yeah.
like
Are you
not
using
say
Riverside as
goodbye.
well? I'm using Zoom, you told me.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
I see what you're saying. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to ask beforehand because I don't want to like not say goodbye type shit.
No, 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 no. I'm stopping and then I'm chatting a little bit longer. I mean, I don't want to abruptly. We became friends here, my friend. We just not gonna just hang out right away. Hang out. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I value everybody who I interviewed. They are a part of my life. I mean, I always remember them and will always remember. You look at your YouTube channel and you see these people. Remember what you talk to them. Something profound. Something really. You learn something.
Yeah, and I just want to say, man, too, I really like respect the hell out of you, man, and I just and what I mean by that is like I appreciate your, not only your kindness you've shown like in incredible amount of respect. You ask me super interesting questions. I really kind of like where the conversation went. But you're just a very respectable person, and I could hardly explain to you how much I appreciate that. So just
Thank
thank
you.
you
Thank
very
you.
much for the hospitality and everything, man.
Dave, I can return the same compliment to you. You're such a. I feel the energy coming. So you're a great guy. Now let me finish with my quote here. You told your quote. I like something I saw today on Facebook. I reposted on my page, and it says, "Are you as you start to walk on the way appears." And I love this because people are stuck in their lives. They don't know what to do. Just start doing something, and the way would open for you. I mean, but do it with your love. You feel like you love what you're doing, and then every step is going to open the way for you.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of like carve your own path type type.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think
you know
that's
what I
a
mean?
good one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because you don't know your way ahead. You don't see it, but when you start walking, it's going to open for you. You know?
Yeah, it's like you gotta follow your heart, follow your,
Yeah,
and that seems to lead you in a pretty good direction most of the time, So it's kind of
yeah,
like trust yourself in that process as well.
yeah. And we had a little conversation before recording. You said you don't know with your podcast, but this is exactly this quote is directed to you as well. Just do what you love. With every step, it's going to open. The way is going to open for you.
Yeah,
All right.
no, I hear you, man, and I think that's true. You can't. You just got to have faith in what you're doing, and if you truly love it, then
Yeah,
you continue to do it no matter what.
you
And it's
will.
like
You will.
skateboarding too, right? It's like when I was a younger kid, it's, oh, I want to be a pro skater. Well, I would never even consider quitting skateboarding just because I'm not a pro skate. It's like the love is there, so you're going to do it no matter what, and that's important.